Hello viewers and welcome again to Discovering Truth, and I am Pastor Forbes from The Gateway, Abiding Word Ministries here in the Gambia. We continue our discussion on the Gambia getting it right, and as we are progressing, I know different thoughts and possibilities are coming up, and I want to believe that we are taking them to heart and making the required tweaks, adjustments, and transformational changes, even if just in our own hearts, our lives, our families, and our institutions, and cumulatively one day it will be a reality for our nation. As I said last week, it will be second nature, and by the grace of God, first nature. Last week we talked about the importance of law and order, and I was asking a question that is there any nation around this world where everybody will want to emigrate to for life quality, for everything? You are not looking over your back. You are just happy. You can be yourself. You can exhale. You can do what you feel in your heart you want to do, or what you know God brought you on this earth to do. And I said that if you see that nation, there are going to be two things in my belief and observation. One would be because it has visionary leadership, and because it has a galvanized followership. So it's a team on a win-win platform, and they're working for the common good. Now, that does not mean that that is a nation without dissenting thoughts, opposition political parties. No, it's just that everybody knows they are working for the common good. So even the opposition parties that form shadow cabinets and shadow governments, and the think tank groups in the nation that are creating alternatives to governance, are all working together. And nations like that tend to even tap into the reserve, the acumen of such, and sometimes bring them on board for the checks and balance. So you're going to find visionary leadership. It goes beyond selfish leadership. It goes beyond somebody just wanting to self-perpetuate. It goes beyond a warring, disconnected factions of tribes and religion. They all understand that this is us. This flag represents us all. The anthem is for us all. And the leadership understand that they are not indispensable, they are not infallible, they are not permanent, they are not divine. So what they do, they create the platform for the next and the next and the next. And sometimes you find one or two nations like that you can find succeeding heads of state and government all coming around when maybe there's a national event, or in the unfortunate circumstance of a national calamity. They are all there, coming together, brainstorming, and giving their wisdom. And then we said that that picture will be undergirded by two qualitative characteristics: law and the entire embodiment of law and order. For example, you talk to an investor. He has his money, or she has her money, they have their money, they have their investment, they want to come into the country to invest. Investors can see opportunity, they can smell opportunity, they can hear opportunity. They can see it. But what would an investor be looking for? Law and order. They need to know that the laws of those countries or where they're going to invest is straight. They can have arbitration. They know where they can go to the judiciary to seek redress, pray in the courts to let them be able to repatriate their resources, do their capital flight or whatever they have to do. And there is orderliness. Somebody's not just going to come and build something on their property and take it from them. Law and order. And so for everybody else, law and order. How many parents want to send their children? How many guardians want to send their wards to institutions where there is no law and there is no order? How many people want to work in a place that is lawless and disorderly? How many people want to join an organization, civil, religious, political, any way you think of it. Do you want to be a member of a lawless church, a lawless and orderless church, where everybody just does anyhow? People can shout from the congregation and scream at the preacher and answer them back, and people can steal the money and just, no, there's orderliness. And so the degree to which there is law and order in a nation is the degree to which there is peace, progress, prosperity, and sanity. Because I know the law. Somebody else knows the law. So you can't tread on me, because the law is very clear here. And this is the order. And with law and order, there are processes. You know, 2 weeks ago, as part of my public speaking training, I was talking about developing logical thinking processes. Developing logical thinking processes. By that, you know how sometimes people speak and their thoughts are all over the place. It's like they have point 1, after point 2, point 65, after point 65, point 14, after point 14, point 2, after point 2, point 95. And by the time you have used delayed tactics to join everything they have said, you can tell that what they were saying, they were making sense, but it was just not following a logical process, an orderly way of thinking. Not to talk of those who never finish their sentences, they finish them in their head. I was going to, but my mother said, and yesterday when the man came, where were you going to? What did your mother say? And how did we get to what the man said yesterday? And so all those things come in processes. So I asked one trainee that this is how I understand berachin, jollof rice, one pot, is to be cooked. You put the meat, beef berachin, in the oil, put the rice on top, put Maggi in areas, put ketchup, lohati around it like you are using your toothpaste, cover it and gas, and of course everybody in the class laughed. Why? Because that's not the way to, you will come up with something that's definitely not berachin. It will be one pot because it's all in one pot, but it will not be jollof rice. It will not be berachin. And what was I intending to show them? That there are processes. So wherever there is law and order, there will be processes. And these processes have been worked out over and over and over until everybody knows. So I asked another trainee that, look, I have $42,000 here. This is all tests that we do in our institution. I have $42,000 here. Just open an account for me now. Let me have the Visa card and go. And she said, no. Why? You have to first of all fill a form. Probably they need to do their due diligence on where this $42,000 is coming from. You probably have to have 2 passport photographs, and you have to have 2 referees who very likely are bona fide account holders in that bank, etc., etc. Because there is a process. So in getting it right, there must be law and order, and we must have processes. Now, if we have true and tested processes, ladies and gentlemen, I doubt whether we will end up having the problems we have with productivity, the problems we have with results. We desire the results, we desire the productivity. All the workshops tell us, all the matrices tell us, all the graphs tell us, all the extrapolated theories tell us, but practically we do not get the results. Why? More often than not, and this is the phrase in English, sometimes we have square pegs in round holes. Ladies and gentlemen, a square peg in a round hole leaves a lot to be desired. And even a round peg in a square hole. What that phrase means is that we have the wrong people in the wrong place who got there the wrong way. So due process was not followed, order was not followed, and we cannot get the desired outcome. You know, if I do not have the skill set for something, and I'm not trained for something, and I'm not empowered for something, and I'm asked to deliver it, how on earth am I going to deliver it? So I will be a frustration to the system. I will be a spanner in the works. I will block the smooth running of the system. And those above me will shout and scream and be frustrated. There'll be enmity all around. Of course, nothing would eventually happen simply because for the smooth, continuing dynamic that will lead to the outcome, there is somebody somewhere that is a block. There is a square peg in a round hole. So if we bring law and order and system processes, ladies and gentlemen, except we don't love ourselves. So here I am, let's say I studied architecture. Architecture, great course, 6 years in the university. I come out with my B.Arch. And there's a job somewhere for a high caliber chef for a visiting head of state. And the salary, for example, let's assume that, because such a job I know will not be advertised for security reasons. But let's just use that because that's what just comes to my mind. And the salary is maybe $45,000 for that 4-day state visit. Here I am, an architect. I'm dealing with AutoCAD software, rapidograph pens and paper and all that. But I have an uncle or an auntie who is connected somewhere. And either I ask them wrongly or they call me also wrongly, already beginning to undermine the system and say, put an application, go online, look for a template, put this, put that, put this, put that. It is coming to my desk. I will veto it and make sure you get it. Do you see what is going to happen? Either we are going to have a president that suffered stomach problems, food poisoning. We're probably going to have coming to the edge of losing diplomatic relations. And all the outcomes that are so predictable will happen because somebody was selfish in this whole scheme. And so we go through the falsehood of putting out applications, sometimes full-page applications, expression of interest, application, half-page. And we feel, well, let's do what everybody does. Advertise it on all the dailies over 2 weeks. Call all the social media outlets. Advertise it on all the popular programs. But as we are doing that, we already know who is going to get that job. That is not getting it right, Gambia. That is not getting it right. Because in everything we have done that I just mentioned, we have been deceptive. Especially, most especially, if the person that we are putting there does not know jack about what they're supposed to do. So do we want to get it right? I've mentioned many things from the first episode. We've now come into law, order, visionary leadership, galvanized followership, the principle of processes. The principle of processes. And so you take the 3 best, as it were, in the interview, or you call for 3 invoices. First of all, 2 of the 3 invoices are from the same company with 2 different names, related to the procurement manager or somebody like that. We cannot not get it right this way. We will not get it right. Generationally, I am sorry to say, we will never get it right. But when the processes are transparent, above board, merit-driven, and of course, sometimes there are exigencies of security considerations, those are well known. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, let me call these following names for you. Nehemiah, as I end, the name Nehemiah, the name Joseph, the name Daniel, the name Shadrach, the name Meshach, the name Abednego, the name Hadassah, Esther, the name Deborah. These are people who lived in an era and served in, if you like, cabinets and royalties that they were not born into. In other words, they were foreigners in those lands. But their ability, their integrity, the fact that the choosing of the best was transparent, they got into those positions. And all these names I mentioned got into top positions. Nehemiah was the man who tasted the king's drink and food before the king ate it. So if the king was going to be poisoned, he would die before the king. And Nehemiah was not from the tribe of the king. He was not even from the nation. Esther, the same thing. She became the wife of the king from a different place. Daniel, the same thing. He was a Jew in a Babylonian cabinet. Joseph was a Jew in an Egyptian cabinet. He was the prime minister, and the king, the Pharaoh, said to him, I am Pharaoh and you are Joseph. By Joseph, no man shall be able to lift their hand up to do anything in this kingdom except by this man. And yet he was not from his place. See, when there are processes and principles, what is at the back of our mind is the outcome, the results. So all these names I mentioned, none of them undermine the system. None of them shortchange the system. They worked for the good of the system. Of course, because in their mind they thought, this system has even given me an opportunity to express my gifting, to express my wherewithal, to bring my acumen forth. I can exhale because I trained for this and I've been given the free hand to do it, and I've done it to the best of my ability. You know, the time gets so short because our time is almost up now, but we're going to go further and further. Think about this in your office. Think about it in your family. Think about it in your company. Think about it in your private sector endeavor, in the schools, in the ministries, in government, in the parastatals, in job promotions, in the banks. Think about it, religious institutions. Rather than kisuma jarbatla, make I help me cousin in Pekin. If you cousin in Pekin not able, you not able. Sajarbat bu munut. And you cannot force a square peg into a round hole. There are going to be problems. It's like how the Bible says you cannot put new wine into old wineskins or patch a new piece of cloth to an old. You lose both. The wineskin bursts, the wine is spilled, it's a lose-lose for everybody. The new cloth, when it stretches, it tears away from the old cloth. You start again. We've lost in time, lost in resources, lost in everything. Gambia, if we want to get it right, transparency processes must be what we do, not just talk about major tender board and all these cliches we use all the time. My question is, while you were making that advertisement, did you already have somebody in mind? Does the person qualify? Will the person add for you? I read somewhere a few weeks ago, and maybe some of you did, about a certain position our late vice president took concerning the construction of the highway. And I read it, so maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I don't know. But he went against the grain from what we read and said, Sir, Your Excellency, what we're doing is for posterity. And those of us sitting in this room, we are less than 50. The people we are dealing with is 2.4 million people. And the people who will be affected are infinitesimally smaller than the common good. Let's follow due process and do what is right. Because it's always right to do what is right. Let me stop here, ladies and gentlemen. Until by the grace of God, I come your way next week, and I hope we are adjusting, shifting, recalibrating, changing for the better, and in the words of our national anthem, for the common good. Have a good day, and may God keep our nation. And happy independence, by the way. Anniversary to all of us. I hope this year will be a turnaround year as we begin our 59th year of nationhood. May God keep us all.
Discover